Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Slava Heroyam Podcast. This is episode 19. I think I might be live on YouTube and Facebook. I am not live on Substack anymore. This is meant to be a pre-recorded show from now on because I'm not very good at keeping a consistent time. And one of the factors to that is nobody really shows up to live podcasts. And that's okay. I'm a very small audience, but if the audience grows and we get bigger and a little bit more of an audience, we will go to uh, back to a live stream show, and we'll probably try to continue to do it at some point on Friday, maybe 7 a.m. Eastern. But for now, to let some of you know what this show is about, I concentrate on the individual heroic stories of the conflict in Ukraine, because I think it's important with all the geopolitics that goes on that we focus on the individual people doing things to help save lives and make that win that war for Ukraine. Today we're going to go back in time a little bit, though, and we'll talk about a hero of the Euromaiden, and then we'll talk about a little bit about how the Euromaiden and the United States' current situation share a lot of commonalities, and how our citizens share a lot of common threats, and how we're all part of the same fight. It can be a peaceful fight if enough people come together and make it so. And we hope it doesn't get to the point that since we do not have a direct threat neighbor, that the United States does not become the direct threat to other nations. We will touch on that, but not get into it fully. Then, as we always do, we'll remember some of those folks that we've lost. And instead of talking about, normally we talk about at least one humanitarian aid organization on this podcast per episode, try to spread awareness. But this time I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about some things to watch out for, because even in Ukraine, as much as I've tried to concentrate on definitely trustworthy charities and whatnot, there you can still encounter those that are not. So I'll talk about some red flags about what to watch out for, so that you do not go down the wrong path of choosing a charity that's not going to the aid of Ukrainians, or at least not in mass. So let's get to our feature topic. I want to oh man. All right. This is not. Yeah. All right. Hold on. We gotta. Wait a minute. All right. There we go. My apologies. I don't know why I'm apologizing. I'm just going to edit this part out. But I think I might still be live. But nobody knows that I was going to go live because I didn't advertise it. All right, let's add. Make sure we add the one that has no watermark. Okay, and then I want to be like. Still not what I wanted. Nope. Might as well just do this. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Liudmyla Sheremet. Now, Liudmyla was an anesthesiologist and doctor in Ukraine who grew up under Nazi occupation, which, was 3.5, maybe 4 years. So this Ukraine conflict is really, since 2014, has lasted a lot longer than that. But definitely since 2022, we are now past the mark where Nazi occupation in Ukraine happened. And so a big portion of Ukraine is experiencing an occupation that has lasted longer than the Nazis and has treated their people, I don't know if as badly, definitely not machine gunned down and mass graves, but is still facing another type of genocide, with their civilians hunted by drones, with children in the occupied territories and some in the non-occupied territories being kidnapped, trained to be soldiers to then fight against Ukraine. This woman saw it all coming. And she was one of the big instigators of the Euromaiden. She led protests every day. And unfortunately, at a protest where they were protesting the security service of Ukraine, which you can think of still as kind of our FBI. They were out in front of that building on 19 February 2020 or 2014. Some of this government agency opened fire onto the crowd, and she was struck in the head. She was in a hospital for 2 days and then passed away. So she was in a hospital. She went into the hospital on the 19th. On the 20th was the largest of the shootings of what the Ukrainians call the Heavenly 100. And the Heavenly 100 are 100 people that lost their lives in clashes with police and authorities while they were protesting. Now, were they protesting violently? No. They were behaving as you've seen many a protest behave. And sometimes people call that good trouble. But you're noisy, you're disruptive. Sometimes you might disrupt traffic. Thing about civil rights movement is they're never nice, and to the point where you're just staying where you can't be noticed. So you're out in front of government buildings, but you're not attacking them. You're exercising your right for free speech. Even in those days, the permits and things that would have had to happen would have been constant. But eventually the protests get under the skin of those in charge. And the president at the time, whose name is Viktor Yanukovych, really, he was Putin's puppet guy. And when Crimea gets annexed around this same time, the people had enough of this guy turning security forces on the people. There had been other investigations of instigations of corruption that the people learned about. And at first it was young people, and then they were shot at. And then the rest of the nation joined in, and then they were shot at. I'm giving a very brief overview of the Euromaiden. And then being shot at a final time was enough. And then the people did seize some of these government buildings. But the military was not on the side of Victor, and he was forced to flee the country, and he's still living in exile in Russia. So, peaceful transition happened, and democracy, true democracy, was restored with an entire branch aimed at policing corruption within the government. Yes, dear. Oh, you found it. It's not live. So.
Oh, okay. Is that it?
No, this is the old one. It was in my box. I put it in there because I really should cut it up. That's the old one.
Well, it says 1029, that's why.
I know, but that one was the old one that I don't know how I lost and then found. So the one that we're looking for is ends in 5090, I think. No, 9726 is what we're looking for. Ends in that 4.
Okay.
Sorry, honey.
No.
Okay. So she's a hero. And authoritarian governments do not like heroes and free speakers and people that organize civil disobedience and protests. And that's the thing I want a lot of Americans to keep in mind is peaceful change that it succeeds never includes violence, but it does include things that are against the established law often. And law is often temporary. Law keeps the order, but if your law enforcement is the violent one that opens fire on people with lethal force, uses tactics to intimidate, that becomes not an issue of the current law of the state, but of morality and the rights of the people. So you should never want the end result to be what the Euromaiden had to do. Those people wanted the current regime to step away peacefully, and thank goodness eventually their numbers and their force that to happen. But we need to be able to differentiate that pretty soon, because we get caught up in this argument of, well, what about when this happened and what about when that happened? Aren't you concerned? Because you can see it coming with a lot of people thinking, well, January 6, 2021 was just like the Euromaiden. And there's all kinds of ways that this channel is not usually really about to try to point out the differences. But if we get stuck trying to point out why an apple is an apple and why an orange is an orange, we'll miss what's really going on in the present. And for 10 years, I've seen people arguing to try to describe why an apple is the same as an orange. And it really isn't. So I hope that makes sense. But we needed to go back to the Euromaiden because this lady right here has a lot in common. Renee Nicole Good has a lot in common with Liudmyla Sheremet. She was not a leader yet, or an organizer, but she was someone who understood it was important to participate. And a lot of Ukrainians of the Heavenly Hundred were just there to participate. They were students. Some of them shared dual citizenship with Algeria and other nations, and Hungary. And they understood what was going on in Ukraine could very easily happen in their other nations. Now, I'm not got plenty of other channels that can argue the video. But one of the things that I've seen that I do want to argue is, well, she shouldn't have been there in the first place. And she should be. Because that's the only way you can point out to people what's really going on. A lot of people are not paying attention. That we're headed towards either the good result of a Euromaiden or a bad result where you see U.S. forces invading Greenland, where you see more, whether they cart off a U.S. citizen or not, they don't care. And so when someone dies and it's something that could have been avoided if the adults in the room, the law enforcement, act like adults in the room. Even if you think all the protesters are behaving like children, someone has to be the adult. And you expect the law enforcement with the weapons to be the adult. But they're either ordered directly, as that Ukrainian president at the time, Viktor, is alleged to have given the order to open fire with lethal ammunition on the crowd, especially on February 20th, the next day after we lost the good doctor. And this was one person and one event, but what we know from watching things like the Euromaiden is that it'll get worse before it gets better. So, United States and Ukraine have heroes in common, and they're both heroes of the week this week. If you want to know more about the Euromaiden, I'm going to put some good resources in the comments, or of course you can visit my Substack, where I've written an article about Renee Good, Ashley Babbitt, and Liudmyla Sheremet, and what they all have in common, and some of their differences. All right, so this week we lost a few more Ukrainians. Their power has been out. Let me get back to this, and then I go this. Okay. In Ukraine, the power in Kyiv has been out. They've really gone after the electric service grid, the Russians have, since the really cold part of the winter is just starting. And what you see are pictures in the street of Ukrainians showing that they're not deterred by the loss of their electricity, coming together, singing songs. I don't have any pictures of that recorded, but and you'll see even in Kherson, life continues. Christmas continued. These people are not deterred, but they know that they need the world's help to get out of this mess. And that's what we're here for, to fight against information warfare. I don't have a lot of counter information warfare. I think people are buying it less and less that Russia is winning this war. All the negotiations on Ukraine have now been taken up by Venezuela and Greenland. So people aren't even thinking about Ukraine again, which is good and bad. But I want you to keep in mind that the attention on Greenland, in a way, well, if we can go grab Greenland, you're asking anyone who thinks we can do that. You're also saying people can go grab Ukraine, people can go grab Thailand. Any country can go grab whatever they want, grab whatever leader they want. Now, I'm a big proponent of that we removed Saddam Hussein the way we did. I thought that was a good thing, despite truth being very questionable. Because I think some people had wrong intelligence and some people had the right intelligence and didn't care. So I'm taking you back even further than 2014 for a minute, because regime change is one thing. But if the people decide that regime change needs to happen and they need some assistance, and there's a country with the power to do it, that can be argued, hey, the people are crying out for assistance for regime change. Is that happening in Venezuela? I don't know enough about it, but that's the first thing that people should investigate is, do the people of Venezuela want the regime change? Because in Iraq, they very much did. Just the way we went about it then continued into more conflict. And that can be a different argument. But the people of Greenland do not want a regime change. They don't want a boss change. And that's very clear. The people of Ukraine do not want a regime change. They do not want a different boss country. Thailand doesn't want a different boss country. Everybody is content normally to let China pretend like they own Thailand. And even Thailand is content to let China pretend. But so maybe, I don't know if that's the solution with Greenland, is to sort of just let Trump think he has it. Wouldn't that be something? Kind of like the medal, the Nobel Peace Prize that the lady gave him from Venezuela, the resistance leader in Venezuela, gave him her Peace Prize. I am talking Trump way more than normal, but it's in an effort to get you back thinking about Ukraine. Because could you placate Putin by letting him pretend that he took over Ukraine the way you could probably do that with Trump? Probably not. So there are some differences there that are important to consider. All right. All this is getting away from the tangent of that we lost some more Ukrainians, and I can never keep up, honor all of them, but I want to honor a few. So let's honor and remember first. So let's remember first. This is Elena, and I only know her as Elena, so if she has a full name, someone can please comment and provide more information to the audience. But Elena was a Ukrainian defender, woman. There's a lot. I like to talk about female soldiers a lot on this channel. But she was killed in action on 30th December 2025, and her funeral took place today. And it's important to remember that she is protecting peace for not just Ukraine, but for all of Europe. In the Kharkiv region, she fell. Also, today we'll remember Valentina, who was killed yesterday by Russians. She would have turned 37. Her mother was severely wounded in the hospital, and her father was killed a week ago. So she lost her mother and father, and then finally the Russian shelling in Nikopol, the name of their town, on the Eastern Front, has wiped out this entire family. So we'll remember Valentina and her family. And finally, another hero who fell recently. This is Ivan Prokopets. He was a combat medic. He was killed while his ambulance was trying to evacuate wounded soldiers. He's been fighting since 2023 as an anesthesiologist at the Volyn Regional Psychiatric Hospital. And then he joined the Army in July as a combat medic. So relatively new, only been at this a couple months. And unfortunately, January 13th, along with everyone that he was trying to evacuate, were destroyed by a human safari FPV drone attacking ambulances rather than attacking the frontline troops. Again, I always want to bring attention to the human safari, and this is a different case than normal. You think he is in a combat zone, but it's still part of the human safari and what Ukrainians face every day. So for this episode, we'll remember those three people here on Slava. All right, and finally, I want to talk about this is episode 19 of the podcast. And episode 18, I had a gentleman on. I had a gentleman on named Ben Dusing. Now I don't know if, and I've got to talk about this. And I didn't do an episode last week because I didn't know how to talk about this. I'll repost that episode 18 has been taken down for now. But I will put it back up because there's a lot of good information on what it's like to live in Kherson. But unfortunately, it's coming from a person that multiple people are warning me cannot be trusted. And, I can't pig-headedly continue to move on because I can admit when I was wrong. That's what a lot of people have to do. I'm a person that wants to believe in redemption stories for everyone. So there was some bad legal drama that came out of for a lawyer who acted very unprofessionally during the trial for custody over his children. And we talked about his free store at the front in Kherson, and I thought it was very unique because a lot of organizations that I talk to, the legitimate ones, they can't get into Kherson at a lot of different times. They're just starting now. The legitimate organization, the Ukraine Assistance Organization, was just recently able to get back into her son. But for a long time, I thought, well, somebody has to be trying to get aid to these frontline locations. And I was given a tip to talk to this gentleman. But some red flags that you can find when a website leads directly to donations, lead to the Venmo, when it takes a long time to get your 501(c) in order, when your tax returns don't come out for a long time, and then when the tax returns do come out, they're fishy, and people are investigating you. It means they don't trust you. And even with all that, I still thought, okay, maybe this guy's turning over a new leaf. But there are organizations you can ask about, and there are people in the know, like me, that if you come across an organization that you think you might want to give to and you're not sure, there are ways to figure out if it's legitimate or not. So, what was his organization called? It's really just two people running it. I've written an article on this as well. So World Aid Runners, I'm sad to say, is one that you should avoid, unless they are absorbed into a larger charity that can then be verified. But there are plenty of organizations out there that can get the Ukraine, the frontline areas, the aid they need. They just are going to be cautious about it, and they can be backed up by some of the larger cities. So one of the ones that I've talked about is Sunflower. We'll go back and I'll recommend again an organization, Sunflowers for Ukraine. Is that what it's called? One of my previous episodes, Man. No, not that. Sunflower Seeds Ukraine. Okay. So avoid World Aid Runners. So avoid World Aid Runners, and let me share a screen. Avoid World Aid Runners, and I would say if you want to help the frontline people, find ways to get the netting and the anti-drone detectors through Sunflower Seeds Ukraine. Okay, that will be our organization of the week again. But again, avoid World Aid Runners. Look for red flags and be able to find tax returns and the 503(c). An organization can be legitimate and be small, but the way they collect donations needs to be very clear, and not all kind of, you can donate big sum, like he was asking for big sums of money from different organizations, And to pledge to help. I think he was looking for people to join him. Originally, he had other people to join him, but if they don't want to talk about, I think one of the best indicators that you should look for is if a charity helping Ukraine is in a network connected by other charities like Blue Check. So Blue Check is a good place to start because their list of charities are legitimate, and sunflowerseeds.org is on that list. Okay. So Ukrainians do still need your help, but get out there and be active, make good trouble, protest for Ukraine, spread the awareness of Kherson and how it's constantly under attack by drones. You can really help out by going to this website at the QR code at the top left, stophumansafari.com. I'll pitch that every episode. But thank you for hanging out and with me for a little bit. And as always, we'll have guests on every now and then, and some a different Ben, not Ben Dusing, but Ben Cook, and will become maybe a regular on here. He runs Researching Ukraine, and Charlie Morris hopefully will be another regular. We'll talk a lot of humanitarian aid for Ukraine and the tactical situation. The tactical situation right now is Ukraine is winning the war. And we will get into that a little bit more next time. They can't win the war outright, but strategically they have Putin on his heels. So we'll return to talking about that next episode. And until we see you next week, Slava Ukraini and Heroyam Slava.